Great moments are born from great opportunities, and that's what you have here tonight, boys. That's what you've earned here tonight. One game. And if we play them 10 times, they might win 9. But not this game. Not tonight. Tonight, we skate with them. Tonight, we stay with them. And we shut them down because we can. Tonight, we are the greatest hockey team in the world. You were born to be hockey players. Every one of you. And you are meant to be here tonight. This is your time. Their time is done. It's over. I'm sick and tired of hearing what a great hockey team the Soviets have. Screw them. This is your time. Now go out there and take it. How many of you recognize that speech? February 20th, 1980, United States men's hockey Olympic team coach Herb Brooks shared these words of inspiration and courage in preparation for what would become the unthinkable. For Team USA to pull off a victory against the most competitive, the most talented team in the world was improbable. Yet perhaps his words gave them the self-confidence and the courage that prompted Al Michaels to say, "Do you believe in miracles?" And on that day, we witnessed a modern-day miracle. As we continue to move through the nights in the festival of Chanukah, I'm reminded about the brachot, the blessing that highlight the miracles that have occurred throughout our history. Yet, as I find myself staring at an increasingly lit menorah, a truly beautiful scene for sure, I become instantly aware of how much effort and particular courage was required to help these miracles to become. From our earliest memories of Jewish education, we've learned that the miracle of Chanukah was that the oil, which was found in the temple following its destruction, was enough to last for only one day. But through God's miraculous work, that oil, in fact, lasted for all of 8 days. We recall this miraculous event every single year, beginning on the 25th of Kislev and lasting for 8 days. We remember the miracle in our prayers during the festival of Chanukah through the recitation of Al Hanisim, both in our Amidot and in our Birkat Hamazon. The miracle of Chanukah was not only that the miracle of Chanukah was not the only miracle that we've had in our Jewish history. We celebrate the miracle of Yetziat Mitzrayim, the exodus from Egypt, with all the signs and wonders on Pesach. We recall Matan Torah, the giving and the gift of receiving of Torah on Shavuot. We even go so far as to recall the miracle of the prayers of Esther on the holiday of Purim. Miracles aren't commonplace, and miracles aren't uncommon in our tradition. And at the same time, they don't just happen. Waiting for a miracle to happen doesn't guarantee an outcome. It took an immense amount of strength, hard work, and courage to decide to leave Egypt in search of freedom, to accept God's commandments and become a Jewish people, and to rededicate the temple, and by extension, our commitment to our Jewish tradition during the time of Hellenization. Miracles are frequently the result of a close call, a blessing in disguise. We've all heard and even told stories about people who were at the wrong place at the right time, risking a terrible tragedy. Perhaps even oversleeping through your alarm and avoiding a terrible accident on your daily commute to work. According to Littlewood's law, developed at Cambridge by Professor John Ensor Littlewood, individuals can expect a miracle to happen to them at least one per month. Yet, over the course of that month, we've actually experienced thousands of these events. This can make a miracle feel commonplace, as if they don't exist, or that they just happen without us recognizing and realizing. I would argue, however, that miracle is about being able to capitalize on opportunities when they present themselves. And for Team USA's hockey team, the miracle wasn't simply that they won. It's that they had the courage to step out onto the ice and play with everything they had. The Talmud teaches us that even the one who is granted the miracle is unaware of the miracle itself. I know for me, like many of us, I'm not always aware of the miracles that are happening around me, nor am I seeing those leaps of faith, those acts of courage to stand up and do what I need to do as a miraculous event. Perhaps then the miracle of Chanukah is not about the oil lasting for 8 days. maybe we can look deeper to see a truly special miracle that occurred. And upon further investigation of the miracle of Chanukah, I found a new meaning of the miracle. Rabbi Laura Geller, the Rabbi Emerita of the Temple Emmanuel of Beverly Hills, explains that the miracle of Chanukah was about courage. Rabbi Geller writes, the miracle wasn't that the oil lasted an additional 7 days, but rather that those ancestors lit the first wick at all, without being certain that the light would last long enough to complete the rededication of the temple. Rabbi Geller describes a scene where the people are not afraid to take the leap of faith or risk taking the chance to act without knowing the end result. Rabbi Geller tells us that it is the miracle of human courage that empowers us to take risks for the future, even in our imperfect and uncertain world. It is the courage, even in the darkest of times, to create our own very light. Rabbi David Hartman of blessed memory shares similar sentiment to that of Rabbi Geller. Rabbi Hartman writes that the miracle of the first day was expressed in the community's willingness to light a small cruse of oil without reasonable assurance that their efforts would be sufficient to complete the rededication of the temple. Once again, we are witnessing courage being a fundamental component of miracles. For both Rabbi Geller and Rabbi Hartman, they both express the importance of courage within the greater miracle of Chanukah. Chanukah becomes a story about courage to fight for something you believe in and the willingness to keep our own Judaism alive. Chanukah is about the miracle of finding and accessing our courage. It took courage for the Maccabees to beat the Greeks. The courage needed to practice Judaism in a time of persecution was of the utmost importance. The Jewish people were courageous when they left Egypt and when they prepared to cross the sea. And it took courage to accept the Torah at Mount Sinai. Who could forget the courage of Esther fasting and praying for the survival of the Jewish people on Purim? Courage is a constant presence in our history, and at the same time, it's hard to cultivate it within ourselves. Being courageous is something I personally struggle with. How can we be more courageous in our lives? To step out on that ice and come ready to give it all for the big game? How can I live by the words of my favorite quote from my Rebbe, Winnie the Pooh, who says, "You're braver than you believe, you're stronger than you seem, and you're smarter than you think"? What can each of us do in the coming days, months, and years ahead to be more courageous? One day, a farmer working in his field heard a terrible crash and then a splash, followed by loud braying and the sounds of kicking. He ran across the field to find the most precious donkey had strayed from the barn and fallen into a well. And it was an incredibly deep well, and there was no way for the farmer to be able to lift the donkey out. So he called to his neighbors, who tried to tie a rope around the donkey to lift him up. And for hours they tried, but in the end, they failed. What could they do? One farmer suggested that each of them bring their shovel and then they bury the donkey in the well. Burying him would be better than leaving him there and listening to his crying. So they went to work. The first shovelful of dirt smacked the donkey on the back, and the donkey cried out, "God, they're going to bury me here in this well." So the donkey shook off the dirt of his back and continued to kick. Another shovelful of dirt fell, and then another, and then another. And each time the donkey shook off the dirt. Soon the donkey realized that he could save himself by pulling his feet out of the water of the well, which was becoming mud, and stepping up, and thus he could climb out of the well. Soon all of the water had been absorbed by the dirt, and the donkey was above the water level. Dirt continued to rain down on him, and he continued to shake off each shovelful of dirt. Shovelful by shovelful, step by step, the donkey climbed out of the well that trapped him. And then, to his surprise, and to the surprise of the farmers, the donkey emerged from the well, and wandered off into the field. A lot of our lives are spent succumbing to the weight and stresses of the earth being shoveled upon us. The courage of this donkey is similar to the courage of the story of Chanukah. As pressure mounts, both the donkey and the Jewish people had the courage to simply shake off the dirt that kept being thrown at them. As both Chanukah and our year come to a close in a few weeks, we find the courage within ourselves. We should find courage to try something new, to befriend a new person, perhaps take on a new hobby. We shouldn't be afraid of what the outcome may or may not be. We should be inspired by Coach Brooks' words that great opportunities come from great moments. It is each and every one of our times, and now it's time to go out there and take it. Be courageous, because we never know what the next miracle will be. Chag Sameach.